Market conditions remaining bearish. We're still sitting on S&P 500 at majority bearish at 14 and 0. We're seeing a neutral trend on the 1 hour time frame here on Friday's close for S&P 500. We are seeing a decent move here this morning in futures that is pushing us back up into this supply block, which is this red zone right here. That's also pushing us back up to that 382 location. So we found support at that 618 and bouncing off of that area around that 55.19 range and pushing back up to that 57.60 range, and could be some resistance happening right here. So we'll see if we do get this gap higher. If that starts to fade, we're seeing some expansion here on trend. Again, this is the futures market, which is going to look slightly different than the S&P pattern sitting right here on this chart. And let's see breadth overall. Let's jump down here. We've got the number of stocks in the S&P 500 that are above or trading above its 50-day moving average sitting at 33. So that means, basically 70% of stocks are still in downtrends, significant downtrends. That 50-day moving average is a decent time frame for downtrends, and we're just seeing, again, this quick glance here on the trend condition. You just got majority bearish. This is obviously going to include the 50-day as well as 14 others that are sitting in here. So we're sitting at 33 on that, and again, that is just still a bearish state for the market. And it's also not deeply oversold. We could move back up from here. We could drop all the way down if we continue to see some acceleration to the downside. That could put us back down in this 10 to 20 number and just trending that direction, but not extreme to that direction quite yet. VIX, we are seeing some softening here back to 18, which should prove to be bullish for markets, or again, that as it's moving back, it generally will go lockstep with what the market is doing. So if the market is moving higher like it is, we're going to see VIX pulling back, but back to an area where it had been, and an area where volatility is a little bit lower. We'll see if that propels the market back up into these ranges. We've got some significant overhead resistance, those levels that we just talked about earlier. Markets have got to break up through that and close above those levels and hold that range. That's going to create some additional support. We're seeing move in bonds still, 82.58 on SHY. That trend is majority bullish on the daily time frame and the 1 hour time frame, which is bearish for rates. Okay, as SHY is moving higher, we're seeing that 2-year, which has majority bearish at 13, that yield at 3.99, trending lower. It's had a little bit of a bounce right here in the shorter term, seeing it over here on this time frame. That's the 2-year yield. TLT, the longer end of that yield curve, showing some strength right here in the 1 hour time frame, that shorter time frame moving higher. The daily time frame moving to majority bullish now at 8 and 6. So again, TLT finding some strength, SHY finding some strength as we're seeing yields drop. We are seeing those as of right now moving up slightly with 430 on the 10-year, and it's at the bottom end of the range, or it's inside of that corrective zone. We could see a bounce here on yields, and that overall trend still working its way to the downside. And again, that's part of the larger economic discussion that's happening is, with rates and stagflation and the economic growth, we'll see if we get any kind of catalyst this week on that front. Dow Jones Industrial Average at majority bearish 14, neutral at 7 and 7, still pretty solid downtrend. Okay, we're seeing this all of this red right here in this overall downtrend, this upper end of this range being the slower of the trends, these being the more reactive of the trends. So obviously as we're seeing price move back up, we're seeing those shorter term trends start to get bullish, but the longer term trend's still intact. So when you're looking at that overall trend, we're getting back to compression, and that compression, as it's happening, could be compression of a bearish trend developing. So consolidating this, counter trending up, compression, more downside. Those will be interesting to see this week. If we take a look at that on a weekly time frame, remember this perspective on all markets, S&P, Dow, NASDAQ, we're at the upper end of this range on this weekly time frame, and it's softening right here with some bearishness. We're still in the momentum range, and this actually on this weekly time frame is relatively bullish looking pattern. If bulls are going to step back in at these levels, this could be an area where we do see some demand, but we are so extended in this trend. We're softening a little bit, but that could compress and then push it higher. We could see maybe a little bit more of an exuberant run to the upside. We'll see if that happens, if markets support that scenario. NASDAQ 100, let me jump back to the daily time frame. right here, and we've got a majority bearish still on that daily time frame for NASDAQ stocks, NASDAQ 100, IWM, which is the Russell 2000, also majority bearish at these levels. USO has finally bumped back up into that bullish zone, that green bar right there, still at the bottom of that corrective area, but we're seeing oil gaining some strength as we're seeing, as we're seeing these lows continue to be bought into every pullback. And so there's definitely some demand showing in oil currently at these levels. GLD, let's take a look at gold and see what's happening here. We've got this historic run to the upside on this daily time frame, majority bullish still, but we are expanded. In expansion here on the daily time frame, you can see starting to break down just a little bit with this move currently. So gold having, that up and down overall trend still bullish. Any pullbacks are opportunities still to be bought into until that trend reverses. SLV, similar type price pattern. Jump over to look at a couple of stock ideas. Two to consider today. BBIO. Not back in momentum, but starting to shift back up. I'd be ideal. There's not a lot of fantastic looking names, and they're pretty thin today, actually. And we'll see if some of these can push up into momentum. Also saw ADPT moving also. This one has pushed up into momentum and is approaching a potential breakout location. And one of the things on these price patterns, when we get back into momentum, it means that the stock has had enough demand to push through a couple of different levels, bouncing off of a significant low. You have this breakdown. Stock has pushed through that. It's retraced. It's now found support there, and then it's pushed through that next level. So one of the reasons why we're looking for confirmation is we want to see that there is demand that has pushed things through. Will we get this exact low? No, not with this method. But we're looking for confirmation to say, is there large institutional demand that can push a stock back into the momentum zone and then potentially push it through some of those most recent highs. So in looking for kind of the logic behind the approaches, looking for momentum zone is we want this to be kind of taken care of. Okay, so we want to pick up where we left off over here before it retraced, and now it's moved back into momentum. Now we would be interested in considering that name again with stop loss, using stop loss management, ideally with Fibonacci levels, trailing stops, and the like. That'll do it for today's update. Everyone have a fantastic day today.